Hi everyone, this is Computer Assisted Translation class. Why translation is difficult for computers? Why is it difficult to get computers to translate? Our answer to this will be in the following points. Um, Part of the reason why translation is difficult for computers is that translation is just difficult even for humans. Translating is a many-faceted skill that goes well beyond mere competence into two languages. Roughly speaking, the job of translator is to take a text in one language, which is the source language, and produce a text in another language, the target text, which is in some sense equivalent. Before we talk about why this is difficult, we should notice that translators are often asked to do rather more than this. In particular, they are often expected to produce a text that is in some sense good in its own right, clear, unambiguous, interesting, persuasive, elegant, poetic, and so on, according to the kind of text being translated. While this is understandable, it is clearly somewhat unfair, especially when one is thinking about trying to automate the process. It is one thing to ask a computer to produce a target text equivalent to the source text. It is quite another to ask the computer to make it interesting. So in asking why translation is difficult for computer, we should be careful to restrict ourselves to the translation job proper. To be concrete, let us imagine that anything the computer produces will be post-edited for qualities other than equivalence with the source text. All we want from the computer is some kind of draft translation, draft equality translation, something which is more or less faithful to the original, understandable in its own right, and which is a reasonable starting point for a polished good translation. Here, if you look at these, are the particular limitations of computers. Okay, these are expected problems: equivalence, lack of precise, lack of precise equivalent. For example, in gender issues, if you say male or female, let us, for example, say in English, one can be vague about the gender of a friend. You can't say a friend is male or female because this word we can use with both male and female without seeming evasive. This is harder in French, where, for example, in French, where one has a choice between the terms for male, ami, or female, ami. Or in Arabic, we say sadiq, but we don't have sadiqa in the Arabic tradition. Conversely, it is hard in English to refer to a friend who is female without going too far, girlfriend or female friend, and so on. So translation here is a difficult task. Another is, the second point is, it is, translation is a creative art, creative task, for at least two reasons, or for these reasons. We have difficulty for coining translations and novel terms, new words. Okay, you can't ask the computer to create new words. So this is difficulty for the computer, difficulty of coining translations and novel terms or new acronyms, and even abbreviations. The third point is the cultural issues. Okay, cultural issues you know, we have different cultures. Uh, Computers cannot understand these cultural problems, the metaphors, these or the idioms used in each culture. You know, idioms and metaphors in English are different from idioms and metaphors in Arabic, for example. So it is difficult for the computers. Okay? The fourth problem is computers cannot perform common sense reasoning. They are not human. There are several reasons for this. One of which is to do with the fact that it involves classification, which involves the notion of similarity, which is a vague notion. Another being the fact that it involves genuine creativity. So this is difficult. Okay, common sense reasoning. Uh, the fact is, common sense reasoning involves literally millions of facts about the world. Water is wet. Men don't, for example, get pregnant. Most people have 2 feet. Sheep are larger than fountain pen, and so on. So this kind of reasoning computers cannot do. Um, Here, the simplest approach to translation is the classical, architectures for machine translation, MT, or machine translation. Okay, these are the difficulty points in translation. Number one, analysis, analyzing the source text, transferring from the source text into uh, from the source language to the target language, and synthesis, or reproducing the target text. In the first one, analysis, we have lexical ambiguities, we have structural ambiguities, anaphoric expressions, and many other issues computers cannot or are not or cannot do when they analyze the source text. Where the source text is analyzed to produce to an abstract representation for the source language text. Okay? The second point is the transfer. Transfer, where the source text representation is mapped to a similar representation of the target language text. Again, the source language representation itself is mapped to a similar representation of the target language text. This is this is difficult for the computer to do. And the third one is synthesis. Generating, reproducing the target language or the source text into the target text, where the target language representation is mapped to a target text. So we have problems, okay? We have many problems in the process of machine translation. So, we have explained that computer-assisted translation is better than machine translation. Computer-assisted translation is different from machine translation, okay? But here we have a problem. Note that we will not proofread a text generated by machine translation or software such as Google Translate. But some clients, some companies, some clients, in order to save money, to save time, they prefer to use machine translation and then ask translators or editors to edit and proofread the translation. So in recent years, some clients have gotten the idea that they can save money by running text through Google Translate or any other kind of machine translation or translation software, and then having a professional translation company edit the work. Our experience, my experience, has taught us or has taught me that these requests are to be avoided. It's better, since it may take more time to achieve high quality through editing machine translation than translating from scratch. So it's better you uh, you start the translation by its own or from the very beginning. But in case that the clients insisted on using or editing machine translated text, you have to know that we resort to editing or post editing. Post editing here, and this expression or this definition, this is a term used for the correction of machine translation output by human linguists or editors. Okay? So you have to evaluate the machine translation, and then you are going to post edit. It's important to clarify that the term post editing has been used within different subfields of natural language processing, including machine translation, automated error correction, optical character recognition, translation memory, and even controlled language. Post editing is by far most commonly associated as a task related to machine translation and has been previously defined as the term, this is the definition, the term used for correction of machine translation output by human. After you use Google Translate, you rewrite the text again, which is easier to you. Well, in basic terms, the task of the post editor is to edit, modify, or correct pre-translated text that has been processed by machine translation system from source language into a target language. Okay, you know, types and levels of machine translation post editing. The level of post-editing to be performed on a text is entirely dependent on several factors, including the user, the client, the volume of documentation, the expectation with regard to the level of quality for reading, the final draft of the translated product, the translation turnaround time, the time. So we have, this is the functional point of view. Here we have learned that post editing, if it is required, we can do post editing after machine translation, but it's better to be avoided. It is better to be avoided. Here, for example, and what are you going to do on post editing? You are going to review all grammatical issues, all the mechanical issues, even the structural issues, verbs, theme, adjunctive themes, verbs and dependent clauses, every grammatical aspect. You know, there are many differences between English and Arabic. Okay, so even word order is different, theme and rhyme different, cohesive ties different, everything is different. So you will work on post editing the texts after machine translation. I hope you have understood what is meant by post editing. Now to review quickly why translation is difficult for computers. These are the different, you know, reasons: equivalent, difficulty of coining translations, classic cultural issues, computer, you know, common sense reasoning, and the three phases or the three stages of analysis, transfer and synthesis, or you know, this is difficult for a computer to do. Thank you for your listening, and I hope you enjoy the class. Thank you.